Next on Newsmax Prime, imagine Gitmo closing and the enemy combatants housed there being sent to your town. Coming up, we'll talk to a congressman trying to make sure that doesn't happen. Plus, polling and the pursuit of the presidency. John Zogby says the early numbers still look good for Marco Rubio. And Kirsten Powers joins us to talk about her new book. It's Thursday, May 14th, and Newsmax Prime starts now. Good evening and welcome to the Thursday edition of Newsmax Prime. I'm J.D. Hayworth. Now to a story of prime interest tonight. President Obama promised to close the detention facility at Gitmo when he first ran back in 2008. Now, 7 years into his presidency, has that itch returned? Miranda Kahn has the latest from our Newsmax newsroom. Miranda?
J.D., President Obama has tried before to move Gitmo detainees to his home state of Illinois, and there's concern he may try it again.
The president has indicated a willingness to use as much of his executive authority as he can to try to take the steps that he believes are consistent with the national security interests of the United States, and that's closing the prison in Guantanamo Bay.
Regardless of what happens in Congress, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said just last week in an executive order from the president to close Gitmo is still on the table. Now, you may recall back in 2009 when the president proposed transferring Gitmo prisoners to a facility in Thompson, Illinois. Well, that proposal was upended by Republicans who blocked funding for the transfer of the detainees. But Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois tweeted just last August that the prison would be an important piece in the economic future of Northern Illinois. So, will the president pick up his pen and sign an executive order, then use his phone to call Senator Durbin and say it's a done deal? Not if Congressman Rodney Davis can stop it. Davis represents the 13th District of Illinois, and he wants to keep the Gitmo detainees out of his district. J.D.?
Thanks, Miranda. And we have that man joining us right now, Congressman Rodney Davis of Illinois, Skyping in from Capitol Hill. Thanks very much for your time and welcome here to Newsmax Prime.
Well, glad to be here, JD. Sorry votes got in the way. Otherwise, I'd be sitting in the studio next to you.
Well, it is good to have you right there on the Hill. Lots going on there. But let me ask you first about your concerns for your district. The president said in early 2009 he wanted to bring Gitmo detainees to your district. What are you trying to do to stop him from doing that?
Well, he's actually talking about bringing them in 2009 north of me a little bit in Thompson, Illinois, but it borders my district. And this is a concern that I think not just I have, but it's a concern that many Americans have, that the president is willing to put some of the most radical terrorists that we have in our nation's history and put them into our federal prison system. And that's why we're trying to stop that from happening in the NDAA bill, and also to ensure that he's not able to continue to do what we don't think needs to be done, which is to close an existing base that we've got a lot of actionable intelligence on, and that's the Gitmo detention facility.
How concerned are you that the president might issue an executive order as he moves into the final year of his presidency?
I'm less concerned about him issuing an executive order to move the prisoners to Thompson, Illinois, and move the prisoners to our existing correctional facilities. But I am concerned because this was one of the first promises that he made as president on Inauguration Day in 2009. I'm concerned that he's actually wanting to cost taxpayers more by closing a facility that we have seen has given us actionable intelligence to stop radical terrorists from hurting Americans. And I don't see why he's in such a hurry to spend more tax dollars to move them not only to the United States, but also to other countries.
Now, Rodney, as you were speaking, we were taking a look at the prison there bordering your district. And it's interesting, over on the other side of the hill, there is your senior senator, Dick Durbin, claiming that Thompson Correctional Center could be an economic boom for Northern Illinois. Are they trying to sell this as a jobs bill to people in the northern part of your state?
Well, there are a lot of times many in the other party that you served with and that I served with, they haven't met a tax dollar that hardworking taxpayers have yet to earn that they don't want to spend. And yes, creating government jobs in their mind is actually economic development in some cases. Now, the federal prison system has already purchased the Thompson prison that was closed by the state of Illinois for the price of $165 million. And when you see the president discuss closing Gitmo, moving detainees to other facilities like Thompson or throughout the rest of the correctional system or to other countries, that means that there's a cost. Now, the federal government said that they're willing to put Thompson active in our existing correctional system, but by law, they're not able to move terrorists there. And any executive order or any decision that folks like Dick Durbin want to make to do that would be violating existing law, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Rodney, I imagine it's just a staple for every member of Congress to go home and do town hall meetings, despite the best efforts of the President of the United States, a former Illinois senator, and the aforementioned Dick Durbin. And by the way, we saw his tweet from August while you were speaking there just a second ago, where he talked about the economic boom for northern Illinois from the Thompson facility. What are you hearing from people? I can't believe they'd actually want to see any Gitmo detainees in their backyard.
Absolutely not. And I hear from my constituents and the constituents that are in districts adjacent to mine that they're just as scared as other Americans that by putting some of the most radical terrorists into our existing correctional facilities, we're just looking for an excuse to allow homegrown radical terrorists to do what we saw happen in Texas. And I got a question earlier today on whether or not Guantanamo is the excuse that many radical groups are using to recruit other members. They don't need Gitmo to recruit members. They're recruiting members based upon videos that are being posted from ISIS cutting people's heads off. People are going to be radical regardless. This is an excuse. We need to keep Gitmo open because it's already been taxed. The taxpayers have already paid for it. And we are getting actionable intelligence because we have the best military officers and intelligence officials on the ground in one place.
And to your point, Rodney, there was no Gitmo before 9/11, and so that wasn't the trigger that started this wave of Islamic terror. So I think you're on target with that. Listen, while we have you here, a couple of things have come up, including floor action earlier today. You were up on the floor this afternoon as the House approved the bill giving Congress the ability to review this emerging nuclear deal with Iran. How did you vote on this and the outcome? Are you satisfied with it?
Oh, I'm satisfied. I easily voted yes for this. This is an issue that I've been talking about since the president has done what I think is an ill-fated effort to negotiate with a country who has absolutely no intention, JD, of abiding by any agreement. I mean, it just reminds me back at the time when you were serving in Congress, when President Bill Clinton talked about how we were going to make a deal with North Korea and they were going to give up their nuclear capabilities. How'd that work out?
And I remember calling very clearly for the administration, the Clinton administration, not to send nuclear reactors to the Korean Peninsula. About a minute 15 remains, Rodney, and since you have a seat on the House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, I have to ask you about that train derailment yesterday in Philadelphia. Were you surprised to see your colleagues across the aisle turn that tragedy into talking points?
Nothing surprises me when it comes to issues like that. It's a tragedy what we saw happen in Philadelphia. I think the investigators are saying right now that train was traveling double the speed. It's not a funding issue. It's an issue of making sure that we have passenger service that's going to be safe and going to be effective. Not every problem in America is solved by investing government money into solving that problem. And in many cases, what we've seen are delays and in turn, a lack of action and a lack of success and a lack of safety being addressed. So in this case, we're going to have to wait till the rest of the investigation takes place. But if it was engineer error, then that has to be taken into consideration rather than government solving everybody's problem when it comes to traffic and transportation issues.
Congressman Rodney Davis of the 13th District of Illinois, sir, we thank you so much for your time. You heard what the congressman had to say. What do you have to say? Contact me on email, Twitter, and Facebook. We'll be right back.